and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Meher Sher and these are the headlines. Two female Supreme Court judges have been shot dead by gunmen in Afghanistan's capital city of Kabul. A spokesperson for the top court said the judges were traveling to their office in an official vehicle when they were attacked. The spokesperson added the driver of the vehicle and another person were wounded in the attack. No group has claimed responsibility so far. In Uganda, opposition candidate Bobi Wine says he will legally contest the victory of Yoweri Museveni in the last week presidential election. In a tweet, he urged his supporters to refrain from violence. 54 people were shot dead by security forces loyal to Museveni during anti-government protests in November. Iran has urged the International Atomic Energy Agency to avoid sharing details on Tehran's nuclear program. In a statement, Iran's nuclear department said the UN watchdog must avoid sowing seeds of confusion within the international community. This comes a day after 3 European powers called on Iran to halt its plans to produce uranium metal. In the United States, all 50 states have been placed on high alert for possible armed protests ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. Thousands of National Guards have been deployed in Washington, D.C. to secure the event on the 20th of January. The FBI has warned of possible armed marches by President Donald Trump supporters in all the state capitals. India's COVID-19 vaccination drive has hit a bump on the first day due to glitches in its app called CoWIN. The country's COVID-19 caseload climbed to 1.5 million with over 15,000 infections and 181 deaths overnight. In Pakistan, over 2,500 people tested positive and 43 more lost their lives overnight, raising the toll close to 11,000. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2,021,000 lives while infecting over 94.5 million. And in football, Leicester City have defeated Southampton 2-0 in their Premier League encounter at King Power Stadium. James Maddison and Harvey Barnes netted one each to seal the win for Foxes. The win moves Leicester City to second place on the league table with 35 points. And we'll be back with more news after a short break. Stick around. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. We start from Afghanistan, where two female Supreme Court judges have been shot dead by gunmen in the capital city of Kabul. A spokesperson for the top court said the judges were traveling to their office in an official vehicle when they were attacked. The spokesperson added the driver of the vehicle and another person were wounded in the attack. No group has claimed responsibility so far. Police said they are investigating the incident. Violence has surged across Afghanistan in recent months, especially in Kabul, amid ongoing peace talks in Doha. A large number of protesting farmers have planned to move to Delhi borders as early as January 20th to avoid long jams on the roads. They will participate in the tractor parade planned for Republic Day on January 26th in the capital. Farm leaders estimate the participation of almost 100,000 tractors from over 7,000 villages from Haryana alone. Meanwhile, opposition party Congress attacked Prime Minister Narendra Modi, saying he has become a slave of the big state capitalists. Over the past 54 days of protests, over 80 farmers have lost their lives, out of which 4 committed suicide in protest against the farm laws. The 9th round of discussions between the government and farm unions ended in a deadlock, with the next round set for January 19th. Moving on, Iran has urged the International Atomic Energy Agency to avoid sharing details on Tehran's nuclear program. In a statement, Iran's nuclear department said the UN watchdog must avoid sowing seeds of confusion within the international community. This comes a day after 3 European powers called on Iran to halt its plans to produce uranium metal. They also called on Tehran to return to full compliance with its 2015 nuclear deal. But Iran's Atomic Energy Organization rejected France, Germany, and Britain's criticism over its plans to produce uranium metal. It said the issue of metallic uranium factory differs from the production of advanced fuel to be used. Last month, Iran's parliament passed a law that obliges the government to harden its nuclear stance. And now in Uganda, opposition candidate Bobi Wine says he will legally contest President Yoweri Museveni's victory in the presidential election. In a tweet, he also urged his supporters to refrain from violence. This comes a day after the Electoral Commission declared Museveni the winner with 59% of the votes. According to the commission, Wine secured just 34.8%. But Wine has alleged widespread fraud and said his home in Kampala was surrounded by hundreds of soldiers. 54 people were shot dead by security forces loyal to Museveni during anti-government protests in November. And moving on, Libya's rival Western and Eastern factions have agreed on a mechanism for choosing a new government. The development came during the UN-led Libyan Political Dialogue Forum in Geneva. Acting UN Libya envoy Stephanie Williams said the selection of a transitional government could be possible in several weeks. The United Nations said the transitional government will lead the war-torn country to elections in December. Stephanie Williams said the agreement represents the best possible compromise on the issue. However, the envoy also warned that there would still be people seeking to obstruct peacemaking efforts. Libya has been split between warring factions since 2014. Now, 48 people have been killed in clashes between Arabs and non-Arabs in Sudan's West Darfur state. Medics say at least 97 others were wounded and fear the death toll may rise. The Sudanese authorities have imposed a round-the-clock curfew in the state. The violence erupted in the provincial capital of Janina when an Arab man was stabbed to death in a camp of internally displaced people. The suspect has been arrested. In the United States, all 50 states have been placed on high alert for possible armed protests ahead of the President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. This comes amid FBI warnings of possible armed marches by President Donald Trump supporters in all the state capitals.
Thousands of National Guards have been deployed in Washington, D.C. to secure the event on January 20th. In Washington, a man has been arrested carrying fake inaugural credentials, a loaded handgun, and over 500 rounds of ammunition. Among other states, Michigan, Virginia, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania also activated their National Guards to strengthen security. The state of Texas has closed its capital through Inauguration Day. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden announced his Science and Technology team, elevating the Science and Technology Policy Director to cabinet-level status for first time in U.S. history.
I was telling these 4 brilliant scientists as I stood in the back, in a way, this is the most exciting announcement that I've gotten to make in the entire cabinet, raising this to a cabinet-level position in one case. These are among the brightest, most dedicated people, not only in the country, but the world.
According to a memo seen by U.S. media, Biden will sign executive orders rejoining Paris Climate Accord and ending travel ban on Muslim countries on his first day.
Moving on, India's COVID-19 vaccination drive has hit a bump on the first day due to glitches in its app called COWIN. The country's COVID-19 caseload climbed to 1.5 million with over 15,000 infections and 181 deaths overnight. Brazil has reported over 1,000 COVID-19 deaths for the fifth day in a row as the country's death toll surges to over 209,000.
Brazil Air Force and Venezuela are flying in respirators and oxygen as scarcity aggravates COVID crisis in Brazil's Amazonas. Mexico has registered its worst week yet of the pandemic with record high infections and more than 7,000 COVID-19 deaths. The Mexican government says the real number of infected people and deaths is likely significantly higher than 140,000 official count. Britain has given almost 3.6 million people a first dose of coronavirus vaccine so far. The government has turned the country's cathedrals into vaccine centers as part of the extensive inoculation drive. The Chinese mainland reported 109 new COVID-19 cases, out of which 96 were locally transmitted. Over in France, a curfew has taken effect to slow coronavirus spread. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2,021,000 lives while infecting nearly 94.5 million people so far.
Whereas in Pakistan, 43 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 10,951. The Ministry of Health says 2,417 new infections were detected overnight. It said currently there are more than 34,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. The ministry said out of over 519,000 countrywide cases, more than 473,000 people have recovered. Earlier, Pakistan approved the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine for emergency use. And Pakistan Navy's ship PNS Nasser has embarked on a humanitarian assistance mission to African countries. The PNS Nasser is on an overseas deployment in coordination with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The ship is on its way to Africa to reach flood-stricken and drought-ridden areas in Djibouti, Sudan, and Niger. The PNS Nasser will also undertake a goodwill visit to Mombasa, Kenya. And we'll be back with more news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. We're back. Britain has invited G7 leaders to the group's first in-person meeting in nearly 2 years. The summit will take place in England's southwestern resort of Carbis Bay in Cornwall in June. In a statement, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he aimed to forge a consensus to revive the global economy from the COVID-19 crisis. He stressed the need to unite with a spirit of openness to create a better future. Johnson termed the coronavirus pandemic the most destructive force and the greatest test of the modern world. Last year's G7 meeting, due to be hosted by the U.S., was cancelled because of the pandemic. G7 leaders have not met in person since the 2019 meeting in France. Now, Guatemala has blocked part of a caravan of around 9,000 Honduran migrants headed for the United States. They were trying to reach the U.S. to escape poverty and unemployment amid hurricanes and pandemic. The migrants entered Guatemala by pushing past about 2,000 police and soldiers posted at the border, with hundreds being detained by Guatemalan military. In a statement, Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei called on Honduran authorities to contain the mass exodus. Earlier, Mexican and Central American governments made it clear they will not let the caravan through. The death toll from earthquake in Indonesia's Sulawesi Island has risen to 73. More than 820 people were injured after the 6.2 magnitude quake hit the island. The country's disaster mitigation agency said over 27,800 people have been displaced. It said police and military officers have been deployed to crack down on looting in several parts of the region. The agency added an emergency response status has also been put in place for 2 weeks. On Friday, a tremor leveled a hospital and damaged severely hundreds of buildings. Also, a volcano in Indonesia's East Java province has erupted, spewing a cascade of ash. According to the geological agency, the volcano poured clouds of smoke that went up as high as 5.6 kilometers. Mount Semeru is the highest volcano on Java Island. However, there have been no reports of casualties or evacuations. Semeru is also known as the Great Mountain, and it is one of the most active volcanoes in the country. Other volcanoes in Indonesia have also shown signs of activity recently. Moving on, NASA specialists have carried out test firing of the Boeing-built Deep Space Exploration rocket. The Space Launch System carrier missile engines did not start as planned. Despite the setback, NASA said it does not consider the test firing a failure. NASA Director Jim Bridenstine added the agency specialists will determine the reason behind the unplanned behavior. 4 engines installed on a special stand inside the NASA testing facility worked simultaneously for just over a minute. NASA announced the Artemis moon program in 2019, but it speculates that the schedule could be reviewed. Now, in the Chinese city of Shenyang, 4 pandas have been spotted playing with balls, rolling on snow, and climbing snow-wrapped tree trunks. More in this report.
In China, an interesting and vivid scene has been presented as giant pandas were spotted playing in the snow-blanked zoo. The pandas were released into the snowfield for enjoying the fresh air at the Shenyang Forest Wild Animal Zoo.
We prevent them from staying indoor for too long. When playing outside, they can breathe the fresh air, have contact with different smells, and enjoy a wider space for activities. So we let them get outside when there is enough sunlight in the afternoon. Especially after snow falls, they would be so excited playing in the snow.
Since the pandas will consume more energy when playing games in the snow, the zoo workers have prepared nutritional bamboo poles and bamboo shoots for them. In addition, they have also installed underfloor heating facilities and air humidity control devices to create a warm environment for the pandas.
We have installed an underfloor heating system to keep the indoor temperature at around 15 degrees Celsius. To avoid the air becoming too dry due to the heating facilities, we would place some water and regularly spray water in the indoor sports field and their rooms to keep the air humidity at a comfortable level.
A zoo worker says outdoor activities are good for the health of pandas.
And on to business. The U.S.-China Business Council has called on the U.S. to reduce tariffs on China. The joint report with Oxford Economics said the move would benefit global economic development. The report said Washington has long benefited from its trade with Beijing. It noted that the U.S.-China economic trade war has resulted in an estimated peak loss of 245,000 jobs in the United States. The report added that the trade war escalation may result in a loss of $1.6 trillion to the U.S. economy, with a peak loss of 732,000 jobs over the next 5 years. Now, major stock markets in the Gulf are trading somewhat subdued as investors await quarterly and full-year corporate results over the next few weeks. The Dubai index is leading the losses, dipping close to 0.5% after Emirates NBD Bank and blue-chip developer Emaar Properties slipped. Saudi Arabia's benchmark index fell marginally, driven down by a decline in the banking and healthcare sector. In Abu Dhabi, the index eased marginally as Telco Etisalat and First Abu Dhabi Bank retreated. The Qatar index has also edged lower, weighed down by a fall for the Gulf's biggest lender, Qatar National Bank. And now it's time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.